The rain did not fall yet. All of New York seemed drenched in a grayness made of tears. Today was the farewell of James Collins, one of the greatest architects and real estate developers of his generation. Hundreds had gathered at the Grand Cathedral, not to pray, but to witness the downfall of a dynasty. They stood there, faces hidden behind dark glasses that veiled their curiosity lips, whispering empty words of condolence. Amid the sea of strangers, a tiny girl of 6 looked like a lonely speck in the crowd. Her name was Lily Collins. She clutched a tattered teddy bear to her chest, her wide brown eyes an exact reflection of her father's, swollen and red. A child's grief needs no words. It showed in her trembling legs, in the way her little hands gripped the worn fabric, and in the sobs caught in her throat. Lily did not understand what death meant, but she felt the chilling emptiness it left behind. Her father, who used to hold her close and tell her fairy tales, now lay in that polished wooden box, silent, still, and gone. A soft, cold hand pressed against her shoulder. "Come, dear. We need to pay our respects to your father," Victoria Hayes said, her voice trembling with theatrical grief. She draped an arm around Lily, but instead of warmth, it felt like a tightening rope. Behind her black veil, Victoria looked like a portrait of sorrow. She wept, tears sliding down her cheeks. But Lily, with a child's sharp instinct, sensed something strange. Victoria's tears were not warm, they were cold as stone. Startled, Lily tried to pull away, but Victoria gripped her tighter, whispering with a commanding edge, "Don't make a scene, Lily. Everyone is watching." Beside Victoria stood Robert Hayes James's brother. He wore a tailored black suit, yet his eyes belonged to a stranger. He did not shed a single tear. He only stared at the coffin, then cast a glance at Victoria. Between them flickered an unspoken pact, a hostile glare answered by a faint smirk hidden behind sorrow's mask. "Foolish boy," Robert muttered, just loud enough for Victoria to hear everything for a child. Victoria's lips curled a slight nod, sealing the silent agreement. Around them, some of James's old friends whispered to one another. Only a month ago, he was fine. What happened, they say it was sudden. A serious illness. Sudden, I don't believe it. He looked like he was wasting away. Victoria swiftly turned back, cutting their murmurs short with a frail sigh. "Forgive me, I'm not feeling well. I'll take Lily outside for some air." Just like that, suspicion was buried under her sobs. Outside the church, a black Mercedes-Benz idled at a distance. Inside sat Ethan Reed, a man in a perfectly tailored suit. He was no friend of James, rather a man who had once lived in his shadow. Ethan had watched every moment, every false tear of Victoria's. His razor-sharp eyes lingered on Lily's frightened face. The sight stirred an old wound deep within him. He remembered himself as a boy, skinny, cowering under a table while his stepfather raged. And James, the very man now lying in that coffin, had once pulled him out of that hell. Ethan clenched his fists, his brow tightening with fury. "I wasn't there in time," he whispered. "You're gone, and I couldn't protect you." Then he looked at Lily, his own reflection from years past. In that instant, a decision crystallized. This was more than repaying a debt. This was redemption, a chance to shield a child from the fate he had endured. His car pulled away, silent and steady. When the funeral ended, Victoria led Lily back to the grand house. The heavy oak doors closed with a thud, as if sealing them off from another world. For a fleeting moment, Victoria's face transformed from grief-stricken widow to ruthless tyrant. She yanked Lily's hand, threw her handbag onto the table. Robert lit a cigar, exhaling smoke into the air. "At last it's over," Victoria sneered. I'm sick of this charade. I can't act for another second." Lily stood still, sensing the chill radiating from her stepmother. She dropped her teddy bear, ready to retreat upstairs, but Victoria blocked her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Her voice cut like a blade. "Don't you hear it? This house is filthy, useless, cursed. We need to cleanse it." Robert scoffed. "Better listen to your mother, Lily. Seems your father was a fool for spoiling a worthless brat like you." Lily bowed her head, trembling. I'll clean the house. I'll work hard. Please don't be angry." "Angry?" Victoria laughed cruelly. "No, I'm not angry. I just pity your father. Worked his whole life only to leave everything to a useless child like you." Robert stepped forward, kicking Victoria's bag aside. Personal items spilled out: a wallet, a phone, some papers. Lily flinched. She knew Robert had always despised her. Her father had scolded him often for his cruelty. Victoria stooped to pick up her bag, her eyes burning with hatred. "I envy you, child. Did you know that I envy the love James gave you? I was with him for 2 years, yet he never looked at me the way he looked at you." She gripped Lily's arm so hard it hurt. "But now everything has changed. I am the mistress of this house. I make the rules." Lily winced in pain but dared not cry. She clutched her teddy bear tighter. I'll be good. I won't bother you or Uncle Robert." Robert sneered, stepping closer. "Good, look at yourself. Just a clingy brat. Your father was a failure and your mother no better. They're both gone. Now I'll take what should have been mine all along." Lily backed away, eyes wide. "No. This is my father's house. He said it belongs to me." Victoria burst into a merciless laugh. "Your father is dead, do you understand? From now on, I decide. You have 2 choices: obey me quietly or get out, frozen." Lily's tears spilled down her cheeks. Robert roared with laughter. "Pathetic. Look at you crying and clutching that ragged toy. What else can you do?" His words struck her like blows against her fragile soul. She lowered her head, longing for the days when her father was still alive, when he held her close at night and told her fairy tales. Suddenly, Victoria's eyes glinted with cruelty. She seized Lily by the arm, dragging her toward the door. "No, please," Lily cried. "It's cold, Mama. I promise I'll be good." Victoria didn't listen. She gripped Lily tighter, grabbed a bucket of cold water and the teddy bear, and hurled them into the yard. "Get out of my house," she shrieked. "I'm done pretending to be a kind mother, you wretched child. Your father's dead, your mother's dead. It's all your fault. I will wash away every stain you brought here." Lily fell to the ground, clawing at the grass for a shred of hope. She glanced toward the neighbors watching from their windows, pity in their eyes, but no one dared interfere. Victoria had bought or threatened them all. Even Frank Miller, the homeless man who slept in the alley, had seen it. He rose to help, but Robert's icy glare forced him back. In that moment, Lily lost everything. Her parents were gone, and now even her home had been stolen. Loneliness wrapped around her, colder than the water soaking her clothes. She collapsed, clutching her drenched teddy bear. Looking up at the dark sky, a question slipped from her lips. Not to anyone else, but to herself. "Daddy, where do I go now?" Just then, the low rumble of a Cadillac Escalade broke the silence. The car screeched to a halt before the gate. A man stepped out, dressed in black. He froze at the sight, a small, soaked child trembling in the corner of the yard. His eyes, once cold, now brimmed with an unspeakable pain. He clenched his fists as a flood of old, bitter memories crashed over him. The lights inside the Collins family's oak house grew dim, as though even they were afraid of the shadows closing in. The moment the heavy door shut, its dry creak severed all connection with the outside world. No more crocodile tears, no more masks of false sorrow. Victoria Hayes tore away her black veil, and her eyes flashed with cruelty, cold to the marrow. She hurled her black Hermes bag onto the glass table, the sharp clatter echoing like a warning. At last it's over. Victoria sighed, her voice dripping with disdain. I'm exhausted from this charade. I can't act another second. Lily stood still, feeling the icy air radiating from her stepmother. She let her worn teddy bear slip from her grasp onto the floor. Her terrified face was plain to see, but Victoria didn't care. She strode forward, kicking her bag aside, scattering its contents. Her leather wallet, the latest phone, and a neatly folded bundle of papers. Where do you think you're going? Victoria's voice cut like a razor. Can't you hear it? This house is filthy. It reeks of uselessness and bad luck. We have to cleanse it. Behind her, Robert Hayes lit a cigar and sank into a leather armchair, smoke curling lazily in the air. He sneered. Listen to your mother, Lily. Seems your father was a fool for pampering a worthless brat like you. James always believed love could conquer everything. Ridiculous. Lily shrank back wide-eyed. She looked at Robert, the man she once called kind Uncle Robert, now terrifying. I'll clean the house. I'll work hard. Please don't be angry, Ma, Lily whispered, her voice trembling. She lowered her head, her small hands gripping each other tightly. She had learned long ago, if she worked, if she behaved quietly, Victoria might ignore her existence. But tonight, that truth no longer held. Angry Victoria repeated a cruel smirk, tugging at her lips. No, I'm not angry. I just pity your father. He worked his whole life only to leave everything to something as useless as you. She stepped closer, her gaze boring straight into the girl. Do you know I envied you? I was with him for 2 years, yet he never looked at me with the love he gave you. Robert rose and moved beside Victoria. Enough, Victoria. We don't have all day for your sentimental games. We have work to do. He pulled out his phone, speaking into it with cryptic assurance. It's done. No one suspects. Now we begin. His eyes flicked to Lily, mocking. The kid stays here until it's settled. Victoria ignored him. She gripped Lily's arm hard. Now everything has changed. I am the mistress of this house. I give the orders. Lily winced in pain but dared not cry. She clutched her teddy bear for comfort, staring at Robert, the same man who once promised her a beautiful doll. Now his words cut like knives. Uncle Robert, you said this was my house. Daddy said so. Your father is dead, do you understand? Victoria shrieked as if Lily were deaf. From now on, I decide. You have 2 choices, obey me silently or get out. Lily froze, tears streaming down. Robert laughed harshly. Look at you, pathetic. All you can do is cry and cling to that ragged bear. Useless. His words struck her fragile heart like blows. She lowered her head, wishing only for the days when her father lived, when he held her each night and spun fairy tales. But that world was gone forever. Suddenly, Victoria's eyes gleamed with cruelty. She seized Lily by the arm, dragging her toward the door. No, Mama, I'm cold. I promise I'll be good, Lily cried in terror. Victoria didn't hear. She grabbed a bucket of cold water and Lily's teddy bear. She flung the bear into the yard with savage force, sending Lily into sobs. The bear, the symbol of comfort and love, lay discarded on the grass. "Get out of my house," Victoria screamed. "I'm done pretending to be a kind mother. You wretched child, your father is dead. Your mother is dead. It's all your fault. I must wash away the filth you brought here." Lily collapsed onto the ground, clawing at the grass for hope. She looked toward the neighbors' windows. Their eyes were full of pity, but none dared intervene. Victoria had bought or threatened them all. Even Frank Miller, the homeless man in the alley, saw it. He started forward, but Robert's icy glare froze him in place. In that instant, Lily lost everything. Her parents were gone, and now her home too. Loneliness smothered her colder than the water soaking her clothes. She curled around her sodden teddy bear, gazing up at the black sky, whispering not to anyone else but to herself, "Daddy, where do I go now?" Just then, the low roar of a Cadillac Escalade shattered the silence. The car stopped abruptly at the gate. Its iron doors creaked open with a sinister groan. A man stepped out, his silhouette stretching long under the headlights. Ethan Reed, 40 years old, a self-made millionaire known in financial magazines. The sharp, cold presence he wore in the business world could not mask the shock in his eyes. His carefully combed black hair now whipped by the wind. He stared at the little girl, and the pain he had buried for decades surged back. In that moment, he didn't see a 6-year-old child. He saw a 15-year-old boy, frail, hiding beneath a dining table, choking back sobs. That boy was Ethan, terrified of a violent stepfather who beat and cursed him for any excuse. On that night, long ago, James Collins had found him, pulled him out of that pitiful refuge, given him not just a home, but trust and friendship. And now James was gone. Ethan stepped forward, each stride heavy. His eyes never left Lily, trembling uncontrollably. He shrugged off his tailored coat and gently draped it around her shoulders. Warmth from his body seeped into her shivering frame. Startled, Lily lifted her tear-stained face. She looked at him with fear and disbelief. Her small hand clutched the edge of his coat, as if afraid he would vanish. Ethan tightened his hold on her, steadying her. Then he lifted his gaze toward the doorway where Victoria and Robert stood. His voice cut the night like ice. "James has been gone less than a day, and this is how you treat his daughter." Victoria flinched. Her false mask trembled, and a counterfeit tear slid down her cheek. "You misunderstand, Ethan. I was only disciplining her. Lily is stubborn. She doesn't respect her Uncle Robert. I only meant to scare her a little." Robert stepped out, exhaling smoke. "I'm her uncle. You have no right to interfere in family matters. You came late to the funeral, now you want to play hero." He smirked. "This isn't your concern. Stay out of it." A cold light flashed in Ethan's eyes. He remembered James pulling him from hell, whispering, "You're not alone, Ethan. You have me." Now standing before Lily, he knew what he had to do. He owed James, and he would repay it whatever the cost. Lily tugged his sleeve, her voice shaking. "Uncle, they'll throw me out again. I have nowhere to go. Please help me." Ethan looked into her frightened eyes and saw his own past. He drew a deep breath, then declared firmly, leaving no room for defiance, "She's coming with me." Victoria's eyes flashed with malice, but before she could object, Robert laid a hand on her arm. "Let her go," he whispered mockingly. "That kid will crawl back to us soon enough." Victoria swallowed her rage, forcing a brittle smile. "Fine. If you want to play the hero, let's see how long you last with that cursed child." Ethan didn't answer. He simply bent down, lifted Lily into his arms. She was light as a dry leaf. Lily clung to his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. For the first time since her father's death, she felt safe. The Escalade waited. The door closed softly. Inside, Lily pressed against the seat, clutching her teddy bear. Her voice was no more than a breath. "Uncle, you won't abandon me too like my stepmother did, will you?" Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Outside, the trees blurred past. Inside, memories clawed at him, nights he sat trembling by a window, waiting for a hand that never came. He swallowed hard, silent. Only the steady hum of the engine filled the quiet. Lily's fear lingered, and in Ethan's eyes, past and present merged, marking the beginning of a new journey. The car pulled into the underground garage of a luxury building. Ethan shut off the engine, opened the door for Lily, and guided her inside. The doorman, Mr. Harris, offered a polite nod, his eyes flicking to the drenched girl. But one look at Ethan's stern face kept him silent. The elevator doors opened. Lily clung to her teddy bear, staring at her shoes. At the penthouse, Ethan handed her a soft towel pointed to the chair. "Sit here a moment. I'll get you dry clothes." She nodded faintly. He returned with a sweater and sweatpants, ushering her into the bathroom. When she emerged, her hair was dry, the oversized sweater making her look even smaller. Ethan prepared chicken soup, setting it before her with a spoon. The aroma filled the room. Lily glanced at it, then pushed it slightly away. "I'll only eat a little. I don't want to be scolded." Ethan sat across from her, his voice calm, deliberate. "Here you don't need permission to exist. You eat when you're hungry. You sleep when you're tired. No one will scold you for that." Lily blinked, uncertain, then lifted the spoon, blowing gently before tasting. Slowly, bite by bite, she ate, stealing glances at him. Ethan waited in silence, hands folded until her breathing eased. Halfway through, Lily set the spoon down. "You don't hate me, do you?" Ethan's reply came after a pause. "No one has the right to hate a child for simply existing." Lily lowered her head. "They say I bring bad luck. You are James's daughter, and you are yourself. No cruelty can define you." He fetched a blanket, draped it over her knees. She whispered, "I won't dirty your house." He gave a faint smile. "A house is for living, not for display. Here you're allowed to make a mess." Night fell. Ethan led her to the guest room. The bed was ready, a moon-shaped night lamp glowing on the table. He handed her water. "Do you want to call anyone?" She shook her head, hugging her teddy. She crawled under the covers, holding back tears, until a tiny sob slipped out. "Daddy, Mommy, why did you leave me with them?" Ethan sat outside the door, back against the wall, hands clasped. He didn't knock or enter. He just listened. The sobs inside faded into silence. His own eyes burned red as memories resurfaced, a boy counting the drunken footsteps in the hallway, stifling cries to stay unseen. Staring at the half-closed door, Ethan vowed history would not repeat itself. He returned to the kitchen, brewed tea, and opened his laptop. He typed a brief email to Attorney Thorne and drafted a morning agenda, confirmed temporary guardianship contact. Lily's school-arranged therapy call, Victoria. Everything had to be done in order, not rushed, but not delayed. He turned off the kitchen light, leaving only the hall lamp on. He sat by her door, eyes closed. Silence reigned, broken only by the steady breaths of a child who had endured too much in one day. Under the blanket, Lily stirred. Her teddy slipped from her arms, hitting the bed frame. From within the worn fabric, a faint metallic click sounded, then faded. Lily slept on. Ethan didn't hear. The penthouse fell into silence, harboring a secret not yet ready to be revealed. Ethan Reed stepped out of his car. He was no longer wearing his expensive suit, only a simple black leather jacket, just enough to keep warm. He was not a man who cared for display, and he had no need of it. He walked along the stone path leading to the church, where only hours ago he had witnessed the false tears of Victoria Hayes. At the church entrance stood Mr. Harris, a middle-aged doorman. "Sorry, sir," Mr. Harris said, "the church is closed." Ethan only nodded, saying nothing. He walked straight inside where a priest was reciting scripture. Surprised by Ethan's determination, Harris did not dare stop him. Ethan moved to an empty pew, sat down, and lifted his gaze to the statue of Christ. He was not a man of faith, but he believed in justice, and he knew that justice did not always come from men. He sat silently listening to the priest's voice. Then he remembered what James had once told him years ago: Ethan, justice is not a gift. It is a battle, and you must be ready to fight for it. He rose, walked to the priest, and said, "I want to do something for those who are gone." The priest looked at him with questioning eyes. "And who are you?" "I was a friend of James Collins," Ethan answered, "and I want to do something for his daughter." The priest fell silent, then nodded. "I understand. James was a good man. He did much for this community." "I know," Ethan said softly. "And now I want to continue his work." Ethan left the church and walked into a small cafe. He ordered a black coffee, sat at an empty table, opened his laptop, and began typing an email. It was a summary of what had happened along with the evidence he had gathered. He sent it to Marcus Thorne, an old friend and one of the finest attorneys in finance. Marcus called back immediately. "Where are you, Ethan?" he asked. "I just got your email." "What are you doing?" "I'm doing what I must," Ethan replied. "I'm fighting for justice." Marcus was silent for a moment. He knew of Ethan's bond with James, and he knew James had been the only person Ethan had ever trusted. "I understand," Marcus said finally. "Send me everything you've got. I'll help you." Ethan closed his laptop. He took a sip of his coffee, and a faint smile touched his lips. He knew the battle had begun. Meanwhile, tension filled Victoria's house. She and Robert argued over Lily's disappearance. Victoria had called the police, claiming Lily had been kidnapped. But the officers did not believe her. They had seen the falsehood in her eyes, and suspicion began to grow. "What the hell?" Victoria Robert shouted. "What did you do? The police don't believe you. They're suspicious of us. That's impossible," Victoria snapped. "I did everything by the plan. I cried. I told them the girl was kidnapped. I did everything I was supposed to." "No," Wabba roared. "You overplayed it. You went too far. No one believes a mother who weeps like that for her kidnapped child." "Then what do you want me to do?" Victoria shot back. "I did everything I could." "What else do you want?" Bart said nothing. He walked to the table, poured himself a glass of liquor, and downed it. "We have to do something. We must find the girl. If not, everything will collapse." "I know," Victoria snapped. "I'll give an interview. I'll tell everyone about a mother's suffering. I'll say Ethan Reed kidnapped her to steal James's fortune." "No," Robert barked. "You can't. That will only make people more suspicious. You must stay quiet." Victoria glared at him, hatred flashing in her eyes. "You want me silent? I won't be silent. I'll do whatever it takes to take back what should have been mine." She stormed out into her bedroom and picked up the phone. "I want an interview," she said coldly. "I want the world to hear about my suffering." Meanwhile, Ethan had taken Lily to a safe place. He had rented a small but cozy apartment. He bought her a new teddy bear, a new coat, and a new dress. Lily looked at the gifts, her eyes filled with doubt. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "I don't deserve it." "Who told you that?" Ethan asked. "Victoria," Lily whispered. "She said I was useless. She said I was bad luck." Ethan knelt, looking straight into her eyes. "Victoria is not your mother, and what she said is a lie. You are a good child. You deserve love." Lily was silent, stunned. No one had ever told her that before. "Really?" she asked. "Really," Ethan said gently. "And now we will begin a new life." Ethan enrolled Lily in a new school. He found her a kind teacher who understood her situation and helped her adjust. Slowly, Lily learned to speak with other children. Slowly, she learned to smile. But at night, nightmares haunted her. She dreamed of Victoria pouring water over her head, hissing that she was cursed. Ethan would wake many times, comforting her, assuring her she was safe. One night, Lily dreamed of her father. He came to her and whispered, "My daughter, trust Ethan. He will protect you." She awoke with tears streaming down her cheeks. She ran into Ethan's room. "Uncle, I dreamed of Daddy. He said I should trust you." Ethan wrapped her in his arms. "I know," he whispered. He did not tell her that he had found proof that Victoria and Robert had poisoned James. He did not tell her that he had discovered James's secret journal with a final message for her. He did not tell her that he was fighting for her for justice and for his friend's memory. He only said, "Sleep now, little one. Tomorrow will be a new day." And Lily slept, her dreams filled not with fear but with peace and hope. The air inside Ethan Reed's penthouse was strangely quiet. But this silence was different from the fearful hush that filled Lily's old home. This was a gentle silence, soothing like an unspoken melody that calmed the soul. Lily sat curled in a white leather armchair, Ethan's purple wool scarf still draped over her shoulders. She looked around the vast living room. Everything was immaculate, orderly, and spotless, yet lifeless. No family photographs, no children's toys, nothing at all. The apartment resembled a showroom more than a home. "Are you hungry?" Ethan's warm, steady voice broke the silence. He emerged from the kitchen carrying a steaming bowl of chicken soup. The aroma drifted through the air, softening the coldness and fear lodged in Lily's heart. She shook her head. She wasn't hungry. She only felt empty, an aching emptiness that seemed endless. Ethan set the bowl on the table, said nothing, and pulled a chair to sit across from her. He studied her with quiet concern. "Lily," he said softly, "I know you're afraid. I used to be too." She looked up, her wide eyes filled with doubt. How could a wealthy, successful man like Ethan ever understand her fear? "When I was little," Ethan continued, "I lived in fear. I was afraid of my stepfather. He always told me I was a burden, useless. He beat me, insulted me, said I didn't deserve to exist." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. She felt small, fragile, powerless. "But there was someone who saved me," Ethan said. "Your father, James. He pulled me out of that hell. He gave me a place to stay, food to eat, and a reason to live. He told me I was not worthless, that I deserved love." Lily's eyes widened in astonishment. She had never heard this story. She knew her father was a good man, a loving father, but she had not known he had once saved another soul. "Your father was a hero," Ethan said. "And now I'll be a hero for you. I'll protect you, Lily. I won't let anyone hurt you again." At that, Lily broke down. She rushed into his arms, sobbing into his shoulder. Ethan held her tightly, soothing her with gentle words. She cried for her pain, her fear, and her loneliness. And when the sobs finally subsided, she felt lighter, as though a great weight had lifted. Later, she ate the chicken soup Ethan had made slowly, spoon by spoon, as if savoring the finest meal in the world. Afterward, she bathed, dressed in new pajamas Ethan had given her, and listened as he read her a story. She fell asleep, her dreams filled with peace and hope. The next morning, Ethan took Lily somewhere. "Where are we going, Uncle?" she asked. "To a place your father left behind for you," Ethan replied. They arrived at a bank. Ethan opened James's secret safety deposit box. Inside lay a journal, important documents, and a USB drive. Ethan handed the drive to Lily. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. She shook her head. Ethan inserted it into a laptop. A recording played. It was James's voice. "Hello, my daughter," James said. "I know you'll find this one day. I left it as my final gift. I want you to know that I love you, and I will always protect you." Lily burst into tears, clinging to Ethan. "Uncle, my father is still alive. He's still here." Ethan embraced her gently. "Yes," he said, "he's still here in your heart." He then examined the documents James had left. Among them were a will, a contract, and other records. Ethan discovered that Victoria and Robert had forged James's signature to seize his estate. He called Marcus Thorne. "I have the evidence," Ethan said. "Proof that Victoria and Robert committed fraud." Marcus's voice lit with resolve. "Excellent, Ethan. Then we fight. We'll reclaim justice." Ethan hung up, turned to Lily and said, "Your father's daughter, we will fight. We will take back what rightfully belongs to us." Lily nodded. The fear in her eyes was gone. She was ready to fight for her father, her mother, and herself, to fight for justice. And as the battle began, everything would change. The following day, Ethan brought Lily to the public library, a place she had never been. The atmosphere was different there. People spoke in whispers, pages rustled, and keyboards clicked, creating a rhythm of knowledge and calm. At the information desk sat Sarah Jenkins, a young woman with neatly tied hair and a kind smile. She oversaw the digital archives and public records. Ethan placed a slim case file on her desk. Inside were copies of James's will share transfer documents and his medical treatment schedule. "We need to cross-check the dates and verify the authenticity of these records," Ethan said calmly. Sarah scanned the papers, then smiled warmly at Lily. "Hello, dear. I'm Sarah. I'll help you find the truth." Lily shyly reached for her hand. Sarah accessed the database's company files, electronic archives, hospital records. Her keystrokes were swift, precise. Suddenly, her eyes stopped on one detail. She turned the monitor toward them. "Here," she said. "The share transfer contract is dated March 14th. Ethan stiffened. "That was James's second hospitalization," he muttered. Sarah nodded. "The hospital record shows he was under sedation for 48 hours. This signature could not have been his. Someone else signed it." She printed 2 copies, marked the discrepancy, and read, "I'll prepare a comparison chart, contract dates, hospital logs, and James's old signatures. The contradiction is serious." "Do you believe me?" Lily whispered, worried. "They hate me." Sarah met her gaze firmly. "I believe you, and I'll help you." Ethan exhaled in relief, resting a hand on Lily's shoulder. "Thank you," he told Sarah. "If there are costs for copies or access, charge me." Sarah shook her head. "Public records are every citizen's right. I'm just doing my job." She lowered her voice. But be ready. I saw a new article just posted. They're telling their version of the story. At that moment, Ethan received a message from Marcus Thorne. Keep Lily close. I've filed for temporary child protection and notified the family court. Prepare copies of all evidence. Ethan replied swiftly. We have recordings, signs of forged contracts. Meeting this afternoon. They moved to the scanning station. Sarah guided Lily's small hands to place documents on the glass and pressed the button. You did wonderfully, Sarah encouraged. For the first time that day, Lily gave a faint smile. Ethan seized the moment to call his office. I need a legal team to compile a signature comparison report, James's, from 2019 to 2023. Urgent. His phone rang again, an unknown number. A woman's voice identified herself as a journalist. We'd like to ask about the kidnapping allegations. Ethan stayed calm. I will release a statement once the court issues a temporary ruling. I will not answer questions outside the legal process. He hung up before another word could be asked. Sarah finished printing and handed Ethan a folder. This is the submission copy. I'll keep the duplicates on record. If anyone asks, I'll answer according to the law. Thank you, Sarah, Ethan said, bowing slightly. Thank you, she replied, for bringing her here instead of letting her face this alone. As they left the library, a breeze brushed past. Ethan held Lily's hand as they crossed the street. He knew Victoria would not stop. She had money lawyers and the media to spin any story she wanted. He tightened his grip on the folder, reminding himself, slow, steady, lawful. That night, as they returned to the penthouse, Lily rested her head on Ethan's shoulder in the elevator, breathing steadily. Tired, Ethan asked softly. I'm fine, Lily whispered. I just never want to go back to that house. You'll never go back to a place that frightens you, Ethan promised. When the elevator opened, they stepped into the hall. Ethan froze for half a second. Across the street, under the trees, a black car sat idling. Its headlights blinked once, then darkened like a deliberate wink. Ethan hurried Lily inside, locked the door, and stepped onto the balcony. In the driver's seat sat Robert Hayes, a cigar glowing between his lips. His fingers tapped a rhythm on the wheel. The ember lit his cold smile. He tilted his head upward, as if he knew exactly which apartment was lit. The two men locked eyes across the silence. Ethan did not flinch. He drew the curtains closed, phoned building security, and sent Marcus a single message. They followed us home. Outside, the headlights blinked once more, then stilled. The car did not move. A silent threat lingered below. 15 minutes later, the car finally rolled away. Ethan noted it down and texted Marcus. They appeared. The next morning, Ethan took Lily back to the library. Sarah was waiting at the children's desk with a box of crayons. She leaned close to Ethan and whispered, I'll sit with her. Go take care of your work. Ethan nodded, resting a hand on Lily's shoulder. I'll be right back. Stay here with Miss Sarah. Lily hugged her teddy bear and nodded, watching him until he disappeared behind the shelves. Ethan returned to the old Collins neighborhood. He rang the bell at apartment 2B. The door opened a crack. An elderly woman with neatly trimmed white hair and sleepless eyes appeared. Martha Thompson, the Collins' longtime neighbor. Sorry to bother you early, Ethan said, offering his card. I was James's close friend. I need to know what you saw yesterday. Martha pressed her lips together, gripping the doorframe, as if afraid of being overheard. She whispered, I saw them. They dragged the girl into the yard. Robert grabbed her arm. Victoria carried a bucket of water. They poured it over her head. She shook like a leaf. She hesitated. I was afraid. They have money connections. I was scared. Ethan did not press. He exhaled slowly, meeting her eyes. If you stay silent, Lily will never be free. I'll stand with you. You won't be alone. Martha stayed quiet for a long time. Then she opened the door wider as if opening her heart. I want to tell the truth, but I need to know I'll be protected. My lawyer will arrange witness protection, Ethan assured her. All you need to do is tell exactly what you saw. He handed her a slip with Marcus Thorne's number. He doesn't talk much, but he gets things done. They walked behind the building. A man sat on an old crate breaking a piece of stale bread. His coat was frayed, his face weathered. Frank Miller, the homeless man who often lingered nearby. Frank, Martha called softly. Come here. Frank squinted at Ethan, wary. Ethan handed him a hot coffee. I was James's friend, Ethan said simply. Frank accepted the cup, warmth seeping into his cracked hands. He cleared his throat. I saw it. They dragged her like a sack. She slipped on the steps, cried without a sound. I wanted to help, but Robert looked at me like he'd kill me if I moved. I have nothing left but that child. She doesn't deserve to live like me. I'll tell the truth, Frank said at last. Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder, firm. Thank you. He gave Frank a card and a slip with a meeting time. This is your appointment with Thorne. I'll be there with you. Martha nodded. Frank nodded. For a moment, the three of them stood in silence like a small vow spoken under the morning light. Ethan Reed's state of mind had completely changed. His eyes no longer carried only the pain of the past. They now held the determination of the present. He knew the battle had begun, and he needed to prepare everything perfectly. That afternoon, Ethan returned to the library to pick up Lily. Sarah was waiting at the children's reading desk. She handed Ethan a timeline comparison chart. I contacted the hospital records department, Sarah said, her tone professional. The date of the share transfer contract doesn't match James's state of sedation. Good, Ethan replied. Tomorrow we'll meet with Attorney Thorne. These documents, together with the witness statements, will be undeniable evidence. When night fell, Lily had gone to bed early, still clutching her teddy bear. Ethan sat in his study laptop open. He searched through old emails and service accounts connected to James's wife's old car. A maintenance folder appeared. Inside was a technical report from the manufacturer with a short English note, BCM ECU log, abnormal override entries. Ethan opened the attached file. A wiring diagram filled the screen with strange log entries marked exactly 1 week before the crash. He called an old friend, an automotive engineer, putting him on speakerphone. I'm looking at some strange entries in the BCM log, Ethan said. It's not about the brakes. Looks like someone tampered with the central control unit, forcing it to execute wrong commands. His friend's voice was firm. If that's true, it required serious skill. No amateur could do it. They'd need direct access to the car. Ethan exhaled slowly. I remember now. James often complained Robert borrowed the car, claiming it was for his girlfriend or for maintenance, even when James's wife was still alive. Then it fits, his friend said shortly. Keep the raw data intact. Print it out. Make multiple backups. Don't touch the car again. Ethan saved the copies, printed the files, and sealed them in a waterproof folder. On the cover, he wrote one line, ECU, not brakes. Likely Robert's doing. He leaned back, glancing through the curtain. The city lights still glowed, but across the street, under a canopy, a dark figure stood motionless. Whoever it was, they had been there for some time, patient, waiting for a mistake. Ethan closed the curtain, turned off the study lights, leaving only a hall lamp. He checked on Lily. She was asleep, clutching her bear. Ethan whispered to himself, "Robert, you didn't just kill your brother. You stole Lily's mother's life. You stole laughter and happiness from an entire family." He locked the balcony doors and checked the security system again. His phone buzzed. A message from Marcus, tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring witnesses and technical evidence. Ethan switched off his phone, sat down on the floor outside Lily's room, and leaned against her door. He closed his eyes for a few minutes. Outside, the figure remained. A faint spark from a cigarette glowed and vanished. No footsteps, but the feeling of being watched lingered sharp and heavy as a shadow pressed against his back. The next morning, Ethan's phone rang non-stop. He pulled the curtain back and saw a message from Martha's kitchen window broken. A brick on the floor. He called her immediately. Her voice trembled. "I heard a noise last night. When I came out, the glass was shattered. I'm terrified." Ethan told Lily to stay with Mr. Harris in the lobby, then drove to Martha's apartment. She opened the door, shards of glass still in her hands. Ethan put on gloves, picked up the brick. Wrapped around it was a note scrawled with 3 words, "Keep your mouth shut." Martha exhaled shakily. "I know who did this, but I won't take back my words." Before Ethan could secure the brick, his phone buzzed again. A church volunteer reported Frank had been attacked in an alley and was receiving first aid. Ethan rushed Martha there. They found Frank leaning against a wall, blood dripping from his lip, one eye swollen and bruised. He managed a crooked grin. "Still got my teeth, don't worry." "Who did this?" Ethan asked. "3 guys," Frank muttered. "Didn't see their faces. They told me to shut up. But I can't." Martha pressed a bottle of water into his hands. "We go together. No one gets left behind." Ethan called Marcus. On the other end, the lawyer's voice was steady. "Document everything. Photograph the scene. Take Frank to a doctor for a medical report. I'll notify the court about witness intimidation." By noon, Ethan picked Lily up. She came out of the reading room clutching her teddy bear. When Ethan told her briefly about what had happened to Martha and Frank, her face went pale. "It's all because of me," she whispered. "If I weren't here, they wouldn't be hurt." Ethan knelt to meet her eyes. "No, Lily. The guilty ones are them. You carry no one's sins." "But they hate me," Lily said. "They hate the truth." "They don't hate you," Ethan corrected gently. "They hate the truth you represent. They hate the truth James left for you." That afternoon, Ethan brought Lily to the downtown law office on the 14th floor. Paula Green, a middle-aged paralegal, opened the door with a smile. "Would you like a hot cocoa, dear?" she asked Lily. The girl nodded shyly. Marcus Thorne stepped out of the conference room, a man in his 50s with silver-streaked hair and clear, calm eyes. He shook Ethan's hand, then leaned slightly toward Lily. "Hello, brave one," he said. "We'll talk about complicated things, but I'll try to make it simple." Inside the small conference room, Ethan laid the USB and folders on the table. Marcus played the recording, then arranged the documents, Martha's testimony photos of the broken window, Frank's injuries, Sarah's timeline chart, and the car's technical report. Marcus spoke carefully. "We need solid evidence, courtroom testimony, the verified audio and technical proof from the vehicle. I'll request emergency witness protection for Martha and Frank. At the same time, I'll file for urgent custody of the child." Ethan nodded. "I have enough to begin. But about the truth of her mother's crash, I can't tell her everything yet. She wouldn't survive it." The door creaked. Lily stood in the doorway holding her cocoa. Her eyes were wide. She had clearly overheard part of the conversation. My mother. It wasn't an accident. The room fell silent. Ethan stepped forward, placed a hand on her shoulder. His voice trembled but was firm. One day you'll know everything, but today let me carry it for you. Her lips quivered. Then, did my father know? Marcus answered calmly. Your father left what was needed to protect you. He loved you very much. Our duty, Marcus continued, is to bring the truth to light piece by piece lawfully. You are not alone, Lily. Her eyes filled with tears, but she clung to those two words, not alone. Paula entered with a thin folder. These are the requests for temporary protection orders and the hearing schedule. Marcus signed, then turned to Ethan. Tonight, limit movement. Don't let her go out alone. I've already notified local police about the threats. Late in the afternoon, they left the courthouse. Ethan held Lily's hand. Mr. Harris in the lobby scanned the surroundings carefully. In the elevator, Lily leaned against Ethan's arm and whispered, If tomorrow I must testify, I'll tell the truth. Ethan squeezed her hand. I'll be right beside you. That evening, Ethan prepared a simple dinner. Lily ate little, but for the first time she finished without stopping midway. After her bath, she sat by the window, gently drying her teddy bear, as if speaking to someone unseen. Ethan sorted the files one last time: USB backups, crime scene photos, technical reports, draft testimonies. On the TV, the evening news came on. The anchor's voice rang clear: new developments in the Collins custody battle. The screen showed Victoria in a black dress, eyes gleaming under the cameras. Her voice was sharp, rehearsed. I will fight to reclaim custody of my daughter. Millionaire Ethan Reed is nothing more than a greedy man trying to seize shares. The living room sank heavy under her words. Lily turned, hugging her bear tightly. Ethan didn't turn off the TV. Instead, he stepped forward, blocking half the screen so Lily saw only him. Listen, he said slowly, every word deliberate. Noise is not the truth. The broadcast carried on, bold headlines scrolling. Outside, the city glowed under another night, and the storm of public opinion had only just begun. Ethan switched off the TV, stacked the files neatly, and checked the USB one final time. The next morning, he held Lily's hand as they walked through the gates of the New York family court. The halls were crowded. Marcus Thorne walked beside them, carrying a thick briefcase. He nodded to Paula Green, who was already waiting. A court officer named Miller led them into courtroom 3. Inside, Judge Patricia Coleman sat high on the bench, her face stern. To the left stood defense attorney Avery Clark, representing Victoria. On the right, several reporters sat in the gallery. Victoria wore a black dress, eyes red as she looked directly at the cameras. Robert sat beside her, wearing the carefully staged expression of a gentle uncle. The clerk called the parties. The judge struck her gavel. Court is now in session. Attorney Clark rose first. Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Victoria Collins is a grieving mother. The child was taken from her home against her guardian's wishes by Mr. Ethan Reed, a powerful businessman. This is nothing short of a kidnapping disguised as protection. Victoria sobbed on cue, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Ethan stood tall, his voice steady. Your Honor, this child has been psychologically abused. They dragged her outside and poured water over her head, as if she were an object. I have witnesses. Call the witnesses, the judge ordered. Martha Thompson stepped forward, hands trembling. She introduced herself as the downstairs neighbor. I saw them drag her. Robert clutched her wrist. Victoria carried a bucket and dumped it over her head. The child shook and begged. Attorney Clark cut in. "Do you bear any personal grudge against my client?" Martha shook her head. "No. I was afraid of their money and power. But the truth is, I saw it happen." Frank Miller then took the stand wearing an old knit cap. His voice was rough but firm. "I sleep in the alley behind. I heard her crying when they dragged her when she stumbled. I wanted to step in, but Robert looked at me like he'd kill me if I moved. I say this because no child should live like me." The judge nodded, making notes. Marcus carefully placed the USB on the table. "Your Honor, this is an audio recording hidden inside the child's teddy bear left by her biological father. I have verified its metadata and timestamp. With the court's permission, I will play it." The courtroom fell silent. James's weary, trembling voice filled the speakers. "What did you put in this bottle of pills?" "I don't need it. When I take it, my heart races." "Karen, where did you get it?" Robert's cold voice followed. "The doctor prescribed it." "Just take it. You're too weak already. Stop being paranoid." Then Victoria's whisper close to the mic. "Let him take more. Let him die." The room erupted, then hushed. Robert's face turned pale. He leapt to his feet. Fake anyone could edit that Marcus didn't flinch. "Your Honor, I've filed a verification report confirming the file's origin timestamp and lack of tampering." He produced another binder with a red clip. "Furthermore, regarding the death of James's wife, the technical report shows the vehicle's central control system was tampered with. Not the brakes. ECU and BCM logs were altered. Whoever did it had skill and direct access to the car." The judge's gaze sharpened. "And the source of this report?" "From the maintenance company system logs authenticated under sworn testimony." Clark tried to object. "That's speculation," Marcus pressed on. "Robert Hayes routinely took the car in for service while the victim was alive. These are the garage logs. The entries match the exact tampering dates." The judge turned to the defense. "Mrs. Victoria Collins." "Mr. Robert Hayes, do you wish to respond?" Victoria's hands clawed at her chair. Her voice shook. I cared for the child. I was only disciplining her." Ethan no longer looked at her. He bent down, whispering to Lily. "You don't need to say anything if you don't want to." But Lily inhaled deeply and stood. Her voice was small but piercingly clear. "If they cared for me, they wouldn't have poured water on me. They wouldn't have laughed when I cried." The courtroom froze. The judge studied her for a long moment, then nodded to the clerk. "Record the child's statement." Marcus presented another chart, Sarah Jenkins's timeline. This proves the share transfer agreement was signed while James was in a coma. He could not have signed it himself. The judge flipped through her eyes sharp. "The court acknowledges strong signs of forgery." Attorney Clark began to rise, but Robert lost control. "She's lying. That brat is lying. And he just wants the money." Victoria tugged at his sleeve, her hands trembling. The judge's gavel struck, her voice firm. "Given the preliminary findings indicating risk of abuse, the court hereby issues an emergency protection order for Lily Collins, granting temporary custody to Mr. Ethan Reed. Furthermore, the court orders immediate remand of Mrs. Victoria Collins and Mr. Robert Hayes, pending investigation into allegations of poisoning, child abuse, and property fraud. A subsequent hearing will be scheduled once the prosecution submits full evidence." Victoria collapsed into her chair. Robert stood frozen, pale as stone. Court officers stepped forward, snapping handcuffs onto their wrists. Camera flashes exploded across the room. Lily burst into tears, throwing herself into Ethan's arms. "Do I have anyone left?" Ethan held her close, pressing her head against his chest. "You still have me, and you still have yourself." The gavel struck again. The noise in the courtroom surged like a wave, but in that small embrace a warm silence bloomed, defying the storm breaking all around them. The next morning, the air inside the New York County Family Court was thick with tension and anticipation. Reporters, lawyers, and curious onlookers crowded the corridors, creating a sea of restless noise. For little Lily, the atmosphere was terrifying, but her small hand clung tightly to Ethan Reed's, a steady source of strength. Beside them, attorney Marcus Thorne, carrying a thick case file, walked with unshaken confidence. He nodded to Paula Green, the paralegal who had been waiting. A court officer named Miller led them into courtroom 3. Inside, Judge Patricia Coleman, a woman with tightly pinned hair and a stern face, sat high on the bench. In front of her were 2 counsel tables. Defense attorney Avery Clark, representing Victoria, wore an air of smug confidence, a smirk tugging at his lips. Behind him, seated in the gallery, were Victoria and Robert, flanked by a few reporters. Victoria wore a black dress, her eyes red not from grief but from anger. Robert sat beside her, wearing the carefully staged expression of a kind uncle. His eyes, however, brimmed with contempt as he watched Ethan and Lily enter. "The court is now in session." "Please be seated," Judge Coleman announced, striking her gavel. Clark rose first. "Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Victoria Collins, is a grieving mother. Her child was taken from her home against the wishes of her guardian by Mr. Ethan Reed, a powerful businessman. This is nothing less than a kidnapping disguised as protection." Victoria sobbed on cue, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief as tears slid down her cheeks. Ethan stood tall, his voice steady. "Your Honor, this child has suffered psychological abuse. They dragged her outside and poured water over her head as if she were an object." "I have witnesses." Judge Coleman nodded. "Call the witnesses." Martha Thompson, the Collins family's neighbor, was summoned. She walked forward, her hands trembling, but her voice rang clear. "I saw them. They dragged her into the yard." Robert gripped her wrist tightly, and Victoria carried a bucket of water. She dumped it right over the girl's head. The child shook like a leaf. Clark interrupted. "Do you bear any personal grudge against my client?" Martha shook her head. "No. I was afraid of their money and power. But the truth is, I saw it happen." Next came Frank Miller, the homeless man. He wore an old coat, but his voice was firm. "I sleep in the alley out back. I heard her crying as they dragged her and she stumbled. I wanted to intervene, but Robert looked at me like he'd kill me if I moved. I say this because no child should live as I have." Judge Coleman nodded and made notes. Marcus Thorne stood, placing the USB on the table. "Your Honor, this is an audio recording, hidden inside the child's teddy bear, left by her biological father. I have verified the timestamp and metadata. With the court's permission, I will play it." The courtroom fell into absolute silence. From the speakers, James Collins's weary, trembling voice echoed. "What did you put in this bottle of pills? I don't need it. When I take it, my heart races. Karen, where did you get it?" Robert Hayes's cold voice followed. "The doctor prescribed it. Just take it. You're too weak already. Stop being paranoid." Then came Victoria's whisper, chilling and close to the mic. "Let him take more. Let him die." The courtroom erupted in murmurs before falling silent again. Robert's face drained of color. He shot to his feet. Fake anyone could edit that Marcus remained composed. "Your Honor, I have filed a forensic report verifying the file's origin timestamp and confirming no signs of tampering." He pulled out another set of documents. Furthermore, regarding the death of James's wife, the technical report shows the car's central control system had been tampered with, not the brakes. The ECU and BCM logs were altered. Whoever did this had expertise and direct access to the vehicle. Judge Coleman looked up. "And the source of this report? From the maintenance company, with system logs authenticated under sworn testimony," Marcus replied. Clark tried to object. "That's mere speculation," Marcus pressed on. "Robert Hayes routinely took the car for service while the victim was alive. Here are the garage logs. The entries match the exact dates of the tampering." Judge Coleman turned to the defense table. "Mrs. Victoria Collins and Mr. Robert Hayes, do you wish to respond?" Victoria's fingers clawed at her chair. Her voice shook. I cared for the girl. I was only disciplining her." Ethan no longer looked at her. He bent down to Lily and whispered, "You don't have to say anything if you don't want to." But Lily drew a deep breath and stood. Her voice was small but startlingly clear. "If they cared for me, they wouldn't have poured water on me. They wouldn't have laughed when I cried." The courtroom froze. Judge Coleman studied her for a long moment, then told the clerk, "Record the child's statement." Marcus produced another document. "This is proof of the share transfer agreement signed while James was in a deep coma. He could not have signed it himself." Judge Coleman flipped through quickly, her eyes sharp. "The court acknowledges strong evidence of forgery in this document." Clark began to rise, but Robert lost control. "That brat is lying, and he only wants the money," he roared. Victoria tugged at his sleeve, her hands trembling violently. Judge Coleman struck the gavel, her voice resolute. "Given these preliminary findings showing risk of abuse, the court hereby issues an emergency protection order for Lily Collins granting temporary custody to Mr. Ethan Reed. Furthermore, the court orders immediate remand of Mrs. Victoria Collins and Mr. Robert Hayes, pending investigation into charges of poisoning, child abuse, and property fraud. A subsequent hearing will be scheduled once the prosecutor's office supplements the case file." Victoria collapsed into her chair. Robert stood frozen like a stone statue. Court officers advanced, snapping handcuffs around their wrists. Camera flashes exploded across the room. Lily burst into tears, throwing herself into Ethan's arms. "Do I have anyone left?" Ethan held her tightly, resting her head against his chest. "You still have me, and you still have yourself." The gavel struck again. The noise in the courtroom swelled like a crashing wave. But within that small embrace, a warm silence blossomed, defying the storm raging all around them. After the court's ruling, Victoria and Robert were taken into custody. No warning, no mercy. Their eyes, once burning with rage, slowly sank into despair as they realized everything had collapsed. Court officers led them away, and the courtroom fell into an eerie calm. Lily was still sobbing in Ethan's arms. She had cried for a long time for the pain, for the fear, for the loss, and also for the release. Ethan held her close, soothing her. "It's over now," he whispered. "You're safe." Lily looked up at him, her eyes still wet. Do I still have anyone?" she murmured. "You still have me," Ethan said firmly. "And you still have yourself. You are strong, Lily. You fought and you won." After signing the necessary papers, Ethan took Lily home, not to his luxurious penthouse, but to her old house, the place that had once been her prison. Lily stood frozen at the doorway, her small hand clutching Ethan's. She was too afraid to step in. "Uncle," she whispered, "I don't want to go inside." Ethan knelt to meet her eyes. "I know," he said gently. "This house gave you so much pain, but now it will be safe. Together we will fill it with love." Still hesitant, Lily watched as Ethan pushed the door open. "This house will hold no more darkness," he said softly. Lily took a deep breath and stepped inside. The house was unchanged, yet it felt entirely different. Sunlight streamed through the windows, chasing away the shadows. She walked straight to her bedroom. The room was filled with old memories, photos of herself and her father. She touched one picture, and a tear slid down her cheek. Ethan joined her. "We'll fix this room," he said. "We'll paint it, buy new furniture. We'll make it into a place you love." Lily nodded. She said nothing, but her eyes spoke her trust. The next day, Ethan called his new friends Sarah Jenkins, Martha Thompson, Frank Miller, and Marcus Thorne. They arrived with gifts and helping hands. Sarah brought a box of books and a few small rugs. She set up a cozy reading nook. "Your little library has been waiting for these books," she said, and Lily smiled. Martha brought fabric for curtains. "I'm not much of a seamstress," she admitted, "but I want your windows to have warm colors." Frank carried a toolbox. "I'll build some shelves," he offered. "Even a homeless man's skills can be useful." Marcus came with papers, permits, and a plan to turn the house into a community center. Together they worked hammers, pounding, laughter rising, Lily's soft giggles filling the air. Ethan painted walls, Frank climbed ladders, Martha measured fabric, Sarah labeled books, and Marcus checked paperwork from room to room. That evening, Lily stood at the doorway of her bedroom. The walls now shone with fresh colors. Her old bed had clean new sheets. She touched the desk where her father's photo once stood. "I was afraid to come in here," she whispered. Ethan leaned against the doorframe. "You have the right to be afraid," he said, "and the right to stay." Lily nodded. She placed her teddy bear on the pillow. Then she turned back and whispered, "I want to hang Daddy's picture back up." Ethan smiled warmly. He knew then that Lily was ready to face the past, to heal, and to begin anew. One morning, as Ethan was sorting through James's old room, he found a worn journal. Written in James's final days, its pages carried his pain, his fear, but also his hope. It spoke of Victoria and Robert, their schemes, and the evidence he had gathered. But there was something unexpected. James confessed he had known about the poisoning. He had tried to stop it, but it had been too late. Ethan's eyes filled as he read James's last words. James had not been weak. He had been a brave father fighting for his daughter until his final breath. Ethan handed the journal to Marcus, who was astonished. "This can serve as evidence," Marcus said. "It will help us close the case." Ethan nodded. He knew this was a battle, and he was ready to fight. Lily walked in and saw Ethan holding the journal. "Uncle, what are you doing?" she asked. Ethan said nothing at first. He simply embraced her and whispered, "Your father was a hero, Lily. He fought for you until the very end." Lily wept again, this time for her father, who had sacrificed everything for her. And from that day, her fear began to vanish. She grew stronger, braver, ready to face life. One afternoon, as Ethan worked in his office, Lily came to sit by him. "Uncle, I want to ask you something," she said softly. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "Do you really want to be my father?" Lily whispered. Or is it just because you miss my dad?" Ethan was silent for a long moment. He looked at her, his eyes grave. "When I first began, I thought I was just repaying a debt," he said. "James saved me. I thought this was my way of honoring him." But now Ethan continued, his voice firm. "Everything has changed. I don't think of James anymore. I think of you. My heart has chosen you, Lily. I want to be your father." Tears spilled down Lily's cheeks as she smiled. She ran into Ethan's arms. "Daddy," she whispered. Ethan held her tight, his own voice breaking. "Yes, Daddy's here." From that day on, Lily never called him uncle again. She called him Dad, and Ethan called her his daughter. Their love became a living fairy tale, a story of healing, of forgiveness, and of a new family. A year had passed since the day Lily Collins walked out of family court, her small hand clasped tightly in Ethan Reed's. The old house, once filled with pain and shadows, now wore a completely new face. The smell of fresh paint, the sound of hammers, and the echoes of laughter had replaced the silence of despair and the sting of cruel words. Ethan had transformed the house into the Harbor Light Center, just as his late friend had wished. On a chilly afternoon at year's end, Lily stood on a chair, carefully tying the final ribbon to the wooden sign above the porch. Ethan held the ladder steady and looked up. "Is it good now, sweetheart?" he asked. "All done," Lily replied with a radiant smile. She jumped down the soft purple scarf around her shoulders, fluttering gently in the wind. Inside the center, warm lights glowed, pushing back the winter cold. Homeless children and those from troubled homes had gathered here. They sat on small rugs, each holding a steaming cup of cocoa prepared by Linda Johnson, the cafe owner from the corner. On a table, Sarah Jenkins laid out stacks of books. "Christmas gifts right here," she said, placing a sign labeled "Christmas Presents" beside them. Dorothy Wilson adjusted the curtains she had sewn with her own hands. Frank Miller strung recycled wooden frames with glittering lights. And Marcus Thorne arrived a little late, carrying a thick envelope. Lily ran around the wooden Christmas tree Frank had built, her purple scarf streaming behind her. Her eyes sparkled as she leaned close to whisper to her teddy bear sitting on the bookshelf, "Today I won't cry anymore, Mommy." From near the door, Ethan watched her with a quiet smile. His mind went back to that fateful day when he had first seen her soaked, trembling, begging for help. He whispered softly, "Just for himself, James, I kept my promise." Marcus approached, his voice calm but firm. "Official news," he said, handing Ethan the envelope. Inside was a thick court ruling stamped and sealed. Robert Hayes and Victoria Hayes had been sentenced heavily for poisoning, abuse, and fraud. The technical evidence of tampering with James's wife's car system had been confirmed. Ethan exhaled and folded the paper. "Thank you, Bill." Sarah, overhearing, smiled. "Justice may come late, but it never disappears." "Lily, sweetheart." Ethan called. She ran over and grabbed his hand. Marcus bent down slightly. "Congratulations, brave girl." Lily nodded, then turned to Ethan. Slowly, clearly, as if declaring a long-kept secret, she said, "Daddy, I'm not afraid anymore." The whole room fell silent for a heartbeat. Ethan's grip tightened around her hand, his eyes glistening. "Yes, my daughter," he said softly. Linda whistled. "It's time." The children rushed around the tree. Frank flipped a switch and the lights burst into color. Dorothy handed out peppermint candies. Sarah placed wrapped books into small, eager hands. Paper tore, the laughter rang out cheerful but never chaotic. On the wall, the new plaque gleamed under the lights, Harbor Light Center, where every child has the right to hope. Lily tugged Ethan toward a quiet corner where James's photo rested carefully framed. She placed a small wooden star Frank had carved next to it and whispered, "Atti, I read your letter. I did everything you asked. I believe in you and in Daddy Ethan." Ethan laid a hand on her shoulder. "And you helped many other children believe too." Marcus leaned in toward Ethan. "The permanent adoption paperwork will be finalized after the holidays. Just a few formalities left." Ethan nodded, a faint smile on his lips. The children began to sing. Their voices were uneven but warm. Lily lifted her hand. "Daddy, let's sing together." Father and daughter stood side by side, their voices joining the others, not loud, but steady. Outside, snow began to fall. Paula Green, Marcus's assistant, paused by the door to hand Lily a small gift bag before slipping away quietly. Lily smiled, whispered her thanks, and set the gift next to her teddy bear. Then she turned, wrapping her arms around Ethan in a firm embrace, as if sealing the words she had spoken earlier. Ethan held her close, his forehead resting gently against her soft hair. The church bells nearby tolled deep and steady. The entire center fell silent for a moment, as though everyone were listening to a shared heartbeat. Snow dusted the new wooden sign on the porch. Lily gazed at the sky through the window, her hand gripping Ethan's. "Daddy, Mommy," she said clearly, without a tremor. "I'm not alone anymore." Ethan bent close, his voice soft yet resolute like a vow. "And you never will be again."